In the future, there'll be a image of dice rolling at the end of the previous video. But I got a number 9 here, and that took us to Transistor by Supergiant Games. That game came out in 2014. I bought it in 2017 for $5. I then never played it until today. If you're familiar with Supergiant Games, this is actually not a sequel, but it's their second release overall, I believe, and then next to Bastion, which was a huge success. I did play through Bastion and beat it, so that one won't be on the list here. But I'm eager to try out Transistor and see what they've got for us. It's currently on sale on Steam for $20. I think that's its usual sort of resting price, but anytime a sale comes around, you can be like me and get it for $5 if you're interested. So this game is presented in a lot of the same way that Bastion was. I should also note, technical difficulties issue here, the game actually started development in 2011, and all of the backgrounds and a lot of the other artwork that appears was hand-drawn. And it was hand-drawn at like 1920 by 1080 or something like that, somewhere in that ballpark. So recording it in full screen was actually kind of a challenge here because our monitors are all bigger now, and it made the hand-drawn assets look kind of funny. And so they're kind of stuck. If you want it to look great, you've got to stay in that original format, and the way you achieve that is just by using launch options in Steam, and that'll keep you in the right frame. If you play full screen and you alt-tab, you'll also screw all of that up. So if you want the game to look as good as they meant for it to, then that's the route you got to take. Set yourself up with some launch options. Anyhow, so what kind of game is this? Well, it's an isometric action RPG where you're essentially looking at a top-down world over cool art assets. If you're familiar with Bastion, I also think it gives you kind of a Link to the Past kind of vibe, where Legend of Zelda game, where you're like looking down on the character and you're having to sort of manipulate your character in different combat situations. In Transistor, the big add is they now have a turn-based mode. And for me anyways, the turn-based mode was sort of my go-to way. But you're actually meant to use it in combination, I'm pretty sure. And we'll get into that later when we talk about the systems design. But right off the bat, you can see from the trailer, it's got... Bastion had really well-known music. A lot of people really liked the music in that game. This game has a very distinctive art style attached to the music. The music is very good. They put a lot of thought into it. And the art style is super cool. It's also neat that it's just you're playing on this hand-drawn piece of art as you're working through combat. Now the story and the way it plays out, so kind of getting into RPG elements, sort of the story is usually your more important part to the RPG. Bastion is a game where you essentially start out and then a narrator walks you through as your character goes and does different stuff. And Transistor is the exact same format, except for the narrator is your sword. And so the sword kind of walks you through everything that's going on in the game and helps you discover the world. That way they don't lore dump you. You can kind of engage. There are clickable assets throughout the world that give you some background. You can miss them. You don't have to interact with them. The game is at its heart the combat system. The combat system is the big thing. That's what you came to see. But if you're interested in a little mystery and story in the background, it's there. The voice acting from the Transistor sword is really, really cool. And its characterization is neat in my opinion too. He grows and changes, especially as you come to figure out who and what he really is, which I won't spoil. So we'll talk about the actual RPG system here. Now your character has a level, you level up, and you also can early on in the game collect some other effects. But every time you level up, you get a function, and the functions are abilities you get to use. If we're likening to Legend of Zelda, that's like your bombs or your arrows or whatever. And they all have a function in the active slot effect, so you get several active slots. that's essentially a hotkeyed button that you do. So this one that I'm showing on the screen is get. You force a target to move towards you, and it pulls them harder the further they are away. But you can also buff your functions in the active slot with other functions that change them ever so slightly. So if you use get as a upgrade slot effect, that could make some other ability pull things towards you. And then you also have a number of passive slots just for your character where you don't use the abilities directly, but it will act all the time. And in this case, it draws cells in faster from further away. When you kill an enemy in this game, they drop into a little nugget called a cell. And if you don't pick up the cell fast enough, then it'll respawn into a different type of enemy. So you generally want to get those. So get's passive effect has its benefits. And that kind of walks you through how that all works. Then also upon level up, you get additional bonuses, and you basically have them division into a couple different ways of whether you're getting more slots or more memory. Memory allows you to use your functions more, so you can use more of them. Each function takes up a certain amount of memory. So you have to kind of manage what functions you have and what upgrades you've got attached to them, given the amount of memory that your character has. And that's how you create a build, basically. Or you can just give yourself more function slots or more passive slots and go at the game that way, even though they still take memory. So there's a little bit of thinking there involved, and you can make some pretty unique builds. And then lastly, you get limiters. And so the game is meant to be replayed. And limiters are increases in difficulty. So for example, you have to fight more enemies if you activate it. The game doesn't have a difficulty setting, so you don't turn the game on and say, I want to play easy, medium, or hard. It just is what it is. And if you want it to be harder, or you have created a particularly strong build and you want to level up faster, you can turn these limiters on to do different things to buff the enemies and get you more XP faster. So this is Sandbox Zone. You see them as little glowy doors to the back door. And
Hi, Luna. Can I call you Luna? Luna, fetch.
you have a stray process. You can play with the little ball here. You can contemplate ideas on the hammock. The music player changes up some different things and lets you hear a lot of the different tracks, and as you progress through the game you can hear a lot more of them, and they also have like alterations of the different tracks.
So this is how it's gonna be. You barely got away from the Camerata with your life. Now they gotta start running from you.
And that's an example of the hammock. The hammock kind of touches up what's going on in the story. There, now above me are also some doors, and those doors are different skill challenges, which give you some level up time, and also to just test your skills and let you use different abilities in different combinations. It forces you to do it. You don't get to pick what abilities you go into those with. And then it has like a practice arena. So here's an example. So we have the planning test. You have to try to terminate all of the process with these given abilities in one turn. So I'm using get 3 times to pull them to me, and then life tap, which is like an area of effect nova type thing, and that kills all the process. And we just pick up the cells, and that completes the challenge. Not all of them are so easy, but a lot of them are are along that same kind of line. So it gives you a little mini game, teaches you more about the combat system and what your abilities actually do. It's really nice. On the whole, this game took me about 6.5 hours to complete. I did play a little bit more into it to get footage here, which I thought was really fun because I haven't completed all the all of the side challenges and extra work there is to do. I may revisit it in the future for sure. On the whole, I was really pleased with it. I think I'd be salty if I paid a lot of money for it back in 2017. Probably if I had to pick between Transistor or Bastion, if you hadn't played either, I would probably pick Bastion. Transistor is a really cool game, though, and the combat system is super fun to interact with and play with. I almost wish it had like an endless mode attached to it, so you could try out different combinations or different things over time. Music is really good. I'll probably revisit the soundtrack with a degree of regularity when I get songs stuck in my head. The reverberating single guitar that they use is just really, really snazzy. It's almost like a noir feel to a lot of the stuff. The fact that it's hand-drawn art assets just gives it such a distinctive, unique style with a human touch. I really liked that too. So, am I ashamed to have not played it until now? No, not really. But it was fun. This isn't like when I discovered that Opposing Force was way better than what I had been led to believe. So, Transistor, good game. Don't feel ashamed that I haven't played it yet. Gave me about 6.5 hours of unrequited joy of destroying different little robots and trying to piece together what is happening in this story. I think a fundamental thing about the way these games are designed narratively reminds me a lot of playing games when I was a child and couldn't read yet. And so, especially a lot of like RPG games like Link to the Past, you get all your information in those old Nintendo games from text, and since you couldn't read, you kind of just had to like piece together everything. And this narrative style really reminds me a lot of that. Also, the trailer is actually pretty helpful in figuring out what the heck is even going on. So, on the whole, a great game. Very pleased with it. I also rolled the dice again and didn't record those when I got through, and I rolled a 1. So in our next video, that's actually going to take us up through the alphabet to Age of Empires 1. Played the heck out of Age of Empires 2 as a kid and as a young adult. I never opened Age of Empires 1, not a day in my life. So we'll play through some of the campaigns on that and see what it's like. And it's the definitive edition, so it's the new version. So I'll see you next time in a totally different type of game.